welcome everyone. We're so happy to have you here. It's nice to see many familiar faces and names, and I'm excited for you all to learn more about NDTC and the incredible lineup of speakers that we have. I know we are all feeling probably stressed, excited, exhausted. I think I'll just kick us off tonight with a collective deep breath. Let's do this. We can do this. We can do hard things. We can do anything for 11 more days. While I know the concept of a Zoom rally and a fundraiser over Zoom isn't new, I do think the content of this one is going to be very different. So I'm going to start with a foundational phrase that I want you to hold in your mind tonight, and I want it to be sort of your mantra for these next 11 days. So that phrase is short-term goals and long-term strategy. So tonight, we're going to hear from Congresswoman Lauren Underwood. We need her to win her race. We need to flip back the House. That is a short-term goal. But we also need the National Democratic Training Committee to be able to resource more candidates and flip red districts blue like Lauren did 6 years ago. Long-term strategy. And you might be saying, Liz, I can't focus on that. Can't we wait till after the election? There's so much going on. I'm not sleeping. I'm stress eating cereal and watching MSNBC at 1 a.m. Or is that just me? Can't we just put a pin in that and focus on long-term strategy after the election? The answer is no, because we don't have a fraction of the energy, attention, focus, or just people's brain power, the broad makeup of our party. We don't have that after the election. The majority of people pay attention to politics for 2 weeks out of the year. And what are those 2 weeks? The ones that we're in right now. So if you have a message, these are the 2 weeks to get it out there. And I like to think of the folks that have joined this call tonight as the star students when it comes to civic engagement. But we need you to talk about the things that you learn here tonight to your friends, family, and neighbors who never talk about politics, who are maybe walking by your Harris Wall sign and saying, I can't believe it's this close. The other guy should be in prison. I want you to take that opportunity. By the end of this call, we're going to equip you with the talking points so that you can take that opportunity and say, well, if Democrats had a stronger long-term strategy, maybe it wouldn't be this close. So here to tell you more about that Democratic infrastructure and why we need to invest in it is NDTC CEO Kelly Dietrich. He brings more than 20 years of experience on dozens of Democratic campaigns across the country. Originally from Missouri, he now lives in Chicago, Illinois, where NDTC is headquartered. And Kelly remains committed to making sure high-quality tools and training are available to any Democrat who steps up to run for office, work on a campaign, or make their community better. Welcome, Kelly.
Hey, thank you very much. That's a wonderful introduction. Thank you for putting this together tonight.
Absolutely.
Thank you to everyone taking time. What are we, 10 days out and a wake up from election to take some time and learn about the future of democracy, learn about what we can do now, meet and hear from some amazing candidates like Lauren Underwood and Kate Barr. We're super excited. Let me tell you a little bit about NDTC, if I can. I worked in Democratic politics for 20 plus years and worked for amazing candidates who would run for House and Senate and governor and big races. And everywhere I went, every campaign I would work on, the same thing would happen over and over, which is amazing local candidates would come up to me, the supposed expert, and they would say, hey, how do I know how many votes I need to win? Or how could I host a fundraiser like this? And it would always blow my mind that these were not, this is not rocket science on how to run a campaign. But it dawned on me that it was no one's job to help every Democrat. We have people like Kate, who you're going to hear from later tonight, willing to step up and work in their community. And yet we're forcing many of them time and again to reinvent the wheel, to learn how campaigns should be run, avoid common mistakes. And I thought, you know what, there has to be a better way. And that was the genesis of the training committee, the National Democratic Training Committee. It sounds official. We are not officially connected to the DNC, but in 8 short years now, we have trained more than 110,000 Democrats for free. We have built an online training apparatus that lets anyone who's thinking about running for office, anyone who wants to learn how to knock a door, anyone who wants to work on a campaign to understand how to do that, so that we can expand the battleground, expand the map, lower the barrier of entry, and allow anyone who wants to be involved in democratic politics to do so. Now, this cycle alone, this November, in 10 short days, we have more than 2,700 candidates who we have helped who are on the ballot. That represents almost 1 out of every 12 candidates, 1 out of every 12 Democrats on the ballot this year. And we want to do more next year. Because as Liz was saying, we have to take this moment and turn it into a movement. Republicans have been investing at every level of government for 30 plus years. They understand that power comes not just from the top, but locally and in the states. And so while we are investing in incredible leaders like Lauren Underwood, who you're going to hear from in a moment, we also need to be investing in our mayors, our city councils, our school boards. We need to be investing in people who are willing to volunteer their time and be the face of the Democratic Party in their neighborhood, so that over the next 30 years, Democratic power grows, so that we're taking advantage of this moment right now, where we're all, me too, scared to death, holding our breath about what's going to happen, right? Every day I wake up, stay calm, work the plan, call voters, text voters, turn out voters. That's what we can do. But we also need to be taking advantage and building for the future, because we may beat Trump on November 5th. We will beat Trump on November 5th. We can do hard things. When we vote, we win. But that doesn't mean MAGA goes away. That doesn't mean Trump is finished. We cannot let our foot up off the gas. I was going to say up off their neck, but that sounds a little aggressive, although that's how I'm feeling right now, right? I'm tired of getting pushed around by racist, misogynist idiots who don't represent our country but think they know all the best things. To hell with that. We're working hard now. We need to keep it going for the future. Sorry, I'm channeling a lot of energy here, y'all. I appreciate you taking time. Liz, thank you very, very much for putting this all together. We can do hard things. When we fight, we win. Let's go forward, not back. Thank you so much.
That's right. We are not going back.
Not going
I
back.
mean, we can't. We have no other option at this point, right? It is all gas, no brakes. We can do this. Now, next up, we have talked about the long-term investment, but let's be honest, we have to send Donald Trump packing. We can't for 1 second fool ourselves into thinking that the Harris campaign is done needing our help. This is crunch time. And here to update on that progress, to motivate us for this final push, is DNC Treasurer and National Co-Chair of Women for Harris, Virginia McGregor. She is coming to us from the great battleground state of Pennsylvania. She got her start in presidential politics, raising boatloads of money for Hillary Clinton's campaign and more than doubling it for President Biden, who appointed her as a Democratic National Committee officer. Virginia has been a grounding force in this campaign, especially for the thousands of women who have been organizing and fundraising like me. I'm fortunate enough to have her on my speed dial whenever I'm stressed out about this election, and tonight you get that same gift. Welcome, Virginia.
Oh, Liz, great to see you and great to see everybody here tonight. Well, when Liz asked me to do something, it's always a quick yes, because I know that it's so important. And Liz, thank you for all that you're doing to ensure that we win just 11 days from now when we elect Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz as our country's new president and vice president. But look, we've come so far since Vice President Harris announced her campaign just 96 days ago. And from the very beginning, she told us that we are the underdogs in this campaign. And we have made remarkable strides because she is such a remarkable candidate. Remember that Trump had a 6 to 8 point lead in August. Now the campaigns are tied nationwide. Polling separates the candidates in some swing states by just a fraction of a percentage point. In 2016 and 2020, and now today, we see how politically divided our country is. This is a race that's being moved in inches. The 2020 election came down to only about 45,000 votes across a handful of battleground states. They say in some, it would really came down to about 5 votes per precinct. And we expect that 2024 election will be the same. Early voting is underway, and we're focused on getting the vote out and protecting it. We have close to 350 coordinated campaign offices nationwide, employing thousands of staff, a much bigger footprint than the Trump campaign. And in my home state of Pennsylvania, one of the race's most critical battleground states, we have more than 50 campaign offices and 400 paid campaign staff. We also have built the largest voter protection program in American presidential history, with more than 100 voter protection staff across a dozen states and thousands of volunteers nationally protecting the vote and being on standby for Election Day. In Pennsylvania alone, we have 25 staff on hand who are focused on protecting voters' efforts. The campaign principals, Vice President Harris and Governor Walz and their spouses, are also brainstorming the battleground states on top of their incredible media blitz. You probably saw the interviews on networks from CNN to Fox News. Vice President Harris conducted a town hall last night. They have been both on multiple podcasts and are meeting with social media influencers and are engaging campaign surrogates from the Obamas to Eminem. The campaign is also micro-targeting specific demographics to reach as many voters as possible from now until Election Day. Just last week, when Vice President Harris was accepting the endorsement from more than 100 Republicans in Washington Crossings, PA, the actress Christine Barnowski and former Congressman Tom Malinowski were meeting with Polish Americans in the battleground suburbs outside of Philadelphia, and then had a caravan from Doylestown to my hometown of Scranton, Pennsylvania. Across the state in Pittsburgh, the Irish Americans for Harris and the Catholic Americans for Harris are headquartered. Many Irish American volunteers are also reaching out to these communities too. These people, like all of you, are diving into volunteering with enthusiasm and urgency. Thousands of people are traveling to Pennsylvania and other critical battleground states every day, and more on weekends, to knock on doors and make sure people have a specific plan to vote. Get this, volunteers knocked on more than 400,000 doors in Pennsylvania just this past weekend. We are making the case for why Vice President Harris and Governor Walz will offer a new way forward. Their specific plans are not concepts of a plan. They will create an opportunity economy that will benefit every American, regardless of party. And we are engaging those people who don't want to vote at all. Over 80 million Americans did not vote in the last presidential election. In 2020, 1/3 of all eligible voters didn't vote at all. President Joe Biden and Vice President Harris won the election with 81 million votes. Every conversation you have, every door knocked, postcard written, text sent could engage one voter who can make a difference in this election, because every vote counts. So for the next 11 days, instead of making small talk with your network, ask them if they have a plan to vote, where they're voting, how they're voting, and especially in a swing state, make sure they're voting for Kamala Harris. Tell people to go to iwillvote.com for state-specific voting information, to check their voter registration status, and more. Tell them about the DNC's voter information text line, which they can access by texting VOTE to 70880 or VOTO to 70888 for Spanish. And let them know that their voices matter. When we wake up on November 6th, we want to know that we left it all on the field. Together, we will elect Vice President Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and we will be able to say that we created a world we saved our democracy, where we expanded the playing field so that everyone could succeed, and where we protected the future for the next generation. Together, we are going to move this country forward. Kamala Harris has said it, time to turn the page. Let's write a new chapter for our country. So I look forward to continuing to work with this group for the next 11 days and beyond. Thanks for being with us today and inviting me here. And let's go win this.
Let's go win this. See, I always feel so much better. Virginia, you make me feel like we're so prepared. We're so well resourced. We're doing the right things with the money. And hearing how robust this campaign is, how prepared the DNC is, it's kind of a shining example of how investing in infrastructure wins. I often think that if we had the DNC that we have now in 2016, that race would have gone differently, because these assets like employees and best practices and donors and on the ground organizers, they don't just happen overnight. Field offices, they don't just pop up overnight. We have that infrastructure now at the top of the ticket. We need this for Democrats up and down the ballot. And Bridget, who's director of fundraising for NDTC, often says this great metaphor, which is like campaigns come in and they build a campsite, Democratic campaigns. Republicans don't have this problem because they are very well funded and unfortunately their infrastructure is very organized. Democrats come in and they build this campsite. And then the campaign ends, they either win or lose, and the campsite comes down. Wouldn't it be better if we just had like a building, a structure that we could just feed candidates and campaigns into, and we provided them with that structure and we wouldn't have to start from scratch each time? That is what NDTC hopes to do. And the way they can do that is by you donating. So Bridget is dropping the link to donate in the chat right now. Smash it if you want the rest of the Democratic Party to look like that shining example that Virginia just sent out of the way that this campaign is just killing it on all levels. Smash the donate button. Next, we have one of the most innovative and intriguing voices on the ballot this November, I think. I've been seeing her everywhere. Candidate from North Carolina for North Carolina Senate, Kate Barr. Kate's district is so gerrymandered that she doesn't stand a chance at winning, and that's not mean for me to say with her on the call. It isn't news to her, considering her campaign slogan is Kate Barr can't win. But she also believes that the constituents of District 37 deserve to have two names on the ballot. And to quote her website, if I'm going to lose, we might as well have a little fun, raise a little hell, and shine a light on the impacts of gerrymandering along the way. Kate's campaign serves both that long-term strategy, which is shining this light on gerrymandering, and the short-term goal, because her running is going to piss a lot of people off in North Carolina that their district is so gerrymandered that the Democrat doesn't even stand a chance, and it's going to drive Democrats to the polls and get those numbers up for the statewide races. We're so thrilled to have you here tonight. Welcome, Kate.
Thank you so much for having me. As one of the candidates that Kelly talked about who's like actually been through your training, it's kind of amazing to be like sitting here and talking to you all. Yeah, I'm running. I mean, innovative is like a generous way to describe this campaign. We are running a radically transparent campaign. In North Carolina, we're like one of the second most gerrymandered states in the country. We have an F for our voting maps. Out of 170 of our state House and Senate races, maybe 6 are competitive. And for a 50-50 state like North Carolina, that's pretty nutty. Our mission, I mean, so there are candidates like me everywhere across the state, because this cycle, Anderson Clayton, who's the chair of our state party, made it her mission to run Democrats everywhere, regardless of what the odds were. So we're contesting in 168 out of 170 of those races. And that matters so much for both reasons of principle and reasons of practicality. On the principle front, voters deserve a choice. Democracy is rooted in voters choosing someone from their community to represent them and their views and their values in their state legislature. In a gerrymandered district, our state legislator is motivated to keep the map makers happy, not to address the needs of the voters. So that's like the big principle that we're looking at here. pragmatically, we know that having a ballot with fully contested races will drive voter turnout up by like 1.5%. And in a state like North Carolina that went for Trump in 2020 by 74,000 votes, that means that we need 740 votes per county to flip for the Harris-Walz ticket this time. Totally achievable, especially when you look at the impact of running Democrats everywhere. I'm knocking on doors. Honestly, we are flipping Republican voters. There are plenty of folks in my ruby red or blood red, depends on who you are as to how you want to describe it, district. And folks they've never had a politician knock on their door before. And the fact that I am showing up and knocking on their door is all they need to vote blue this year. It's kind of amazing. Plus we have Mark Robinson, and like having someone that extreme on a ticket doesn't hurt things. We're seeing the county party chairs really building the infrastructure, even in these red districts, to the point that the coordinated campaign, so that's the Harris-Walz team for North Carolina, has come into my ruby red district and is like organizing 6 to 8 canvases a weekend. We're knocking 1,500 doors in a weekend in an R+25 district. That's bananas. I feel like in this is truth. In 2016, I didn't do enough. I didn't knock a door. I didn't donate $1. I texted some friends about voting, but I certainly didn't like broadly reach out to people. And then I cried on my sofa for like a year. And I know a lot of you also cried on your sofas for a year after the 2016 election. And this year, y'all, we are putting in the work. Like, I actually see suburban white women like me investing the time and energy in achieving the outcome we want. We aren't expecting it to just be handed to us this time. And I think that's going to have a huge, huge impact on the outcome of these statewide races. So obviously we can't have Mark Robinson as our governor in North Carolina. It looks pretty good for Josh Stein right now, but there are amazing candidates, including State Supreme Court Justice Allison Riggs, who is necessary for us achieving our fair map goal by 2030. I feel so heartened because we are doing the job that needs to be done. Everyone is showing up this time. People know what's going on in North Carolina. Folks are not ostriching and putting their heads in the sand, like they're engaged. And we're seeing that in voter turnout for early voting. I will close out by sharing this very hopeful number with you. So normally in early voting in Iredell County, which is like the reddest part of my district, we would see about double the Republicans showing up for early voting as we do Democrats. Right now, it is like dead even. And that's amazing. We're seeing record turnout and it is dead even. And that is because of groups like the NDTC who help candidates like me when the state party needs to focus on competitive races and I'm not competitive, I have somewhere I can go to get the resources that I need to do the job that needs to be done. So thank you all for having me. It's lovely to meet you. And onward, we're going to do the thing.
Let's do it. I love it, Kate. It's so true. The more contested races we can put up there, the more money we can bleed from the Republican Party, the more places we need them to invest, the more successful we are overall as a party. I am obsessed with North Carolina, like obsessed with North Carolina, have been since I was at a DNC event where they showed a map and showed that winning North Carolina really hamstrings Trump's path to 270. It really just makes it a complete mess. He basically has to win everything if he loses North Carolina. So that is that I'm like picturing Steve Kornacki touching North Carolina. I'm manifesting it in my brain, and I'm not just manifesting it. I also buttonholed Roy Cooper again at a DNC event during the convention and was like, hey, you don't know me, but are we going to win your state? And he talked about population growth and how what he's seen with other Democrats who've run for statewide office there. and how gerrymandered it is. It seems like a red state, but it really isn't. He also talked about the organizing efforts of people like their state party chair that Kate mentioned, Anderson Clayton, who is 26 years old. She was elected at age 25, and she is incredible. She's a rocket ship. She's on MSNBC all the time. I highly recommend following her on all forms of social media. She has got this state ready to go. So we are feeling really positive about North Carolina. We appreciate you running this race, and you're also just like a marketing genius, Kate. I love your merch. Go to her merch shop. It's like fun things that say loser, and it's just celebrating the ridiculousness of gerrymandering. It says like gerrymandered AF. Highly recommend picking some of those up. So next we have the star of our show. We're so thrilled to have her here tonight, Congresswoman Lauren Underwood, coming from Illinois' 14th congressional district, which is suburban, exurban, rural, all the things in the great state of great area of Northern Illinois. She flipped this seat from red to blue in historic fashion in 2018, defeating a 4-term Republican incumbent. She is the youngest Black woman ever elected to Congress, and she is a passionate advocate for accessible healthcare, reproductive freedom, and common sense gun violence prevention. One of my favorite people in Congress. Welcome, Congresswoman Underwood.
Well, Liz, thank you so much for having me this evening. I am so grateful to be part of this great event with my friends at NDTC, Virginia, and Kate. I'm so moved by your story. I'm so happy that you're in this fight. We have 12 days. And the energy is high, the momentum is extraordinary. Here in Illinois, we are in a fight to make sure that all of our friends, all of our neighbors, all of our family members take the opportunity to go vote. I've had some really tough races since I first ran for Congress in 2018 and flipped the seat, as Liz said, from red to blue. And, you know, this is a different type of an election for me. This year in 2024, we have to get our folks out to vote. And we're doing it kind of with one hand behind our back, in that we don't have anybody running statewide in Illinois. And so it's just up to our congressional race to power the vote in our community and make sure that we have very robust turnout, because we all remember what happened in 2020. In my community, when Donald Trump was on the ballot, we had turnout, Republican turnout, upwards of like 80 and 90%. Dems have not, you know, in our area voted at that same voter strength. And so we are trying to, you know, surprise some folks this year and make sure that we have very robust Democratic turnout to ensure we have big Democratic victories all across Northern Illinois. Because as we know, it's not just congressional races at stake. It's not just electing Kamala Harris, right? And in a state like mine in Illinois, we know that Kamala's going to win the state of Illinois, but everybody else, it gets to be really competitive in purple districts like ours. And so I'm grateful for the training and the support that NDTC has given to me personally. You know, when I first decided to run for Congress, like the first weekend that I launched my campaign, I was in those webinars trying to figure out how to raise money, how to hit my fundraising goals, how to set up a finance plan, how to structure a fundraising event. Like the basic how-tos is what we learned how to do thanks to those training courses. And I never imagined that the skills that I would gain in those early days on those webinars and video training sessions would power me to flip a seat and raise the money needed to sustain a majority in the House and hopefully reclaim a majority this November. I've been hearing a lot from voters on the trail. Our district is more diverse post redistricting. And so now our district is about 40% people of color, and folks have a lot on their minds. Number one issue is lowering costs, without a doubt. But for different folks in different parts of our community, we're hearing issues about access to affordable housing. We're hearing about high grocery costs. We're hearing about high healthcare costs, and people really want to benefit from like $35 insulin if they're not seniors, or looking for work to do as we go door to door over these remaining days. When I think about ways that people can be involved, there is no missed opportunity in this election, and we would welcome people to join us in knocking doors across Illinois' 14th district. We have a lot of voters that we haven't had the volunteer resources to reach in priority precincts and places where people share values, but they need a little nudge to get out and vote. That's where we're spending our time during these final remaining days, and we would love to invite you to join us. But thank you so much for your generosity, for your financial contributions, for your commitment to doing the work to save our democracy in this critically important election. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Lauren. We have one more guest joining us, but we're just going to give her a second to hop on. I think we're having just a little technical glitch. In the meantime, we are going to take some of your questions, so you can pop those in the chat or in the Q&A section. I'm going to bring Kelly back on to answer this one. We've had a question, we've said that NDTC is headquartered here in Chicago, but what about the other states? Could you talk a little bit about your national reach?
Yeah, absolutely. We work, our mantra is collaborative, not competitive. We are not the only group providing amazing training. We're the only group providing it at scale to any Democrat. But if there are resources and best practices available to the candidate, we want to make certain they get access to them, that they know about them, because what matters most is Democrats creating that long-term change, building that long-term power and making the world a better place. We work with all 57 state parties, so that includes the territories and Democrats abroad. We have candidates on the ballot in all 50 states as well. So again, Democrats need to be thinking about solutions that scale. This is a yes and situation. Yes, we need to be donating and putting up TV advertisements to turn out voters, and we need to be providing any Democrat who's willing to step up and do the work with the tools, resources, and know-how to do it as effectively as possible. And I see that our next guest has joined.
Yes. Hi. So I'm just going to hop back into introducing our final guest this evening. Ashley Jackson is an actress, screenwriter, and producer, best known for her starring roles in the films Beat and Blast Beat, and she is currently getting her master's degree at USC's School of Cinematic Arts. She is the youngest daughter of legendary political activist Reverend Jesse Jackson and author and intellectual Karen Stanford. Ashley has formed a production company to develop projects that align with her passions for gender equality, education, and civil rights, all values shaped by her upbringing. She's also head of Gen Z engagement for Black women in entertainment for Kamala. And I'm so excited to see you, Ashley. Welcome.
So excited to see you too. I feel like we met at the beginning of the process here, and we just keep seeing each other, which is
It's like we are on the Zoom journey together.
Zoom journey together. Well, I will try to keep my remarks brief, but I just want to say hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. As we approach the 2024 presidential election, I just want to talk about the critical role of Gen Z engagement in shaping our collective future. So let's start with some important numbers. 41 million members of Generation Z are eligible to vote this year. And according to a recent NBC News poll, 58%, which is around 23 million of us, are almost certain to cast a ballot. But as we know, the election doesn't begin on November 5th, it ends that day. Early voting is already underway, and every day between now and Election Day is an opportunity to make our voices heard. Now, what's especially important for this audience to understand is that Gen Z isn't just a potential voting bloc. We are an integral part of your base. We're already joining the electorate, and that means we deserve a seat at the table. Our futures are on the line in this election and beyond, and we want our voices to be recognized, valued, and heard. I've seen the energy and enthusiasm of my generation firsthand, whether it's through virtual town halls, my work as a DNC creator, or in interviews on my podcast, Push the Next Generation. I've encountered countless young people passionate about shaping our country's future. But we can't do it alone. Our generation needs to be empowered, supported, and included in the decision-making processes that will determine the trajectory of our futures. And this isn't a new struggle. It's part of a much longer fight for equality and justice that stretches back through our nation's history. My father, Reverend Jesse Jackson Sr., helped lead that charge when he invited everyone to the table as part of the Rainbow Coalition movement during his 1984 and 88 presidential campaigns. His efforts taught me that grassroots activism can create waves of change. And now I'm working to harness the tools of our generation to do the same. That's why I created the hashtag Ballot Bestie Challenge. Originally, it was a voter registration drive, but now it's about getting out the vote. So here's how it works. Make sure you and your 5 friends or family members have a voting plan, whether it's early voting, absentee ballots, or showing up on election day. Challenge those 5 people to do the same within their circles and share your participation on social media using hashtag Ballot Bestie and keep the momentum going. You can check my page for examples. So this approach turns voting into a shared social experience, and influential voices in entertainment from Jennifer Lewis to Sarah Jeffrey have joined in, spreading our message far and wide. And let me be clear, this effort isn't just for Gen Z. Everyone has a role to play. In the words of the High School Musical cast, we're all in this together. And for those of you outside of my generation, I hope that you recognize just how much your influence matters. You have the power to activate the youth in your communities by meeting us where we are on TikTok, Instagram, Discord, and other platforms. You can still host meaningful conversations about why this election matters, especially now as we focus on early voting. You can still help the young people in your communities plan their vote, and if possible, encourage them to become poll workers, which can also be a paid opportunity. Because when we work together across generations, we strengthen our democracy. This election will impact all of our lives, everything from healthcare to climate change to education. And we know that leaders like Vice President Kamala Harris and Governor Tim Walz represent the policies and values that will ensure a better, more inclusive future for all of us. So I ask you, will you make room for us at the table? We only need about 41 million seats or so. We're here, ready to participate, and we want to be a part of the decisions that shape our future. This election is our chance to do just that, because when our voices are included, our democracy becomes stronger. So I'm asking you to take action, join the hashtag Ballot Bestie Challenge, make your voting plan, vote early, and spread the word. And from one ballot bestie to another, this is our moment, our future, and our democracy. Together, we can make a lasting impact. Thank you.
Thank you, Ashley. Whenever somebody asks me, what are the youths doing in this election? I always reference Ashley. I always love to bring Ashley along to show people that the youths are motivated, they're excited, they have a plan, they are using technology, they are using the way that they interact with each other to get people excited about this election and get people involved. And then I always like to remind people that we need to make good on the promises and the requirements that we're asking of them. We want them to show up at the election. We need to give them that seat at the table. We need to prioritize the things that mean something to them, like the climate, like affordability, like voting rights. And we need to make good on this promise that we've been putting out there, saying, vote for the future and the change that you want. And I'm excited to elect Democrats up and down the ticket and do that and keep these promises that we've made to young people. So we're going to get into some more questions. Thank you so much, Ashley, for being here. I've got one for Rep. Underwood. So this one comes from Karen in Northfield. She says, Rep. Underwood, I remember your first race in 2018, meeting you at a Moms Demand Action meeting. You've never shied away from that issue, even though you're in a purple district. Do candidates need support to be brave like you? So can you talk a little bit about how you've come out so strongly on that issue and what you've learned and what other candidates can learn to be as brave and forthright as you?
Well, thanks to the advocacy of community leaders from groups like Moms Demand Action, we've seen the whole landscape around the discussion around ending gun violence change dramatically from when I first launched my campaign. I first launched my campaign in August of 2017, which is before even the Las Vegas shooting. Our primary in 2018 was exactly 1 month after the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas horrific shooting down in Florida. And since that time, we've had so many other examples of just devastating gun violence. I remember when I first was running for Congress, I was hesitant to talk about my personal support for an assault weapons ban because I knew it was broadly unpopular in our community. And throughout the time of my first the moment I launched my campaign in August of 2017 to probably that August of 2019, the public sentiment swung in Illinois' 14th district over 2 years, and over 60% of voters in our polling were supporting an assault weapons ban. And so now this is something that we see even our presidential nominee, Kamala Harris, calling for a Congress that's willing to stand up for kids, stand up for families, stand up for all Americans and say, no more. We shouldn't be scared to go to the library or a movie theater or a concert. We shouldn't be scared to go to work or school, that we don't have to live under this threat of gun violence any longer. But the conversation has advanced beyond universal background checks. The conversation has advanced beyond an assault weapons ban. We have to talk about safe storage. We have to talk about red flag laws. We have to talk about, the way that suicide is now such a tremendous a threat in so many of our communities for key demographics of people. Suicide and overdose are the #1 killer of moms postpartum. Suicide continues to take the lives of 22 veterans a day in this country, right? And there's so many people who are uncomfortable with having an explicit conversation around suicide prevention and gun violence prevention. But these conversations have to go hand in hand. And so I'm looking forward to having a majority in the House that can, of course, pass universal background checks and that can put an assault weapons ban bill on the floor. But I also am looking for a really comprehensive discussion on what it means to end gun violence in this country, what it means to truly invest in studying gun violence as a public health threat, and then being willing to make the investments that are truly needed to save lives, invest in ending suicide, invest in ending domestic violence, and all of these other related issues. And I think we still have some work to do on that front.
We do, absolutely. But the more we can talk about those holistic solutions and the more we can talk about the way that they intersect, and the more that we can talk about shifting the Overton window, which is kind of the window of what people deem acceptable. It used to, as you said, be really controversial to be for an assault weapons ban. And now there are barely a handful of Democrats that don't proudly with their full chest support that policy. But we know that that's not the answer to ending all of gun violence, and that we need these holistic solutions that invest in communities. And I think that everybody that spoke on this call tonight has a piece that plays in that puzzle with both, as we talked about, the short-term goals and the long-term strategy. The next question is coming from Paula Adler. This is a question about the race and what we can do with these next 11 days. What is the highest and best path for volunteers between now and the election? Is it going door to door? Is it helping cure ballots? Where people are challenged to fill them out? Is it driving people to the polls? So maybe Kelly, since you are a veteran of 20 campaigns, what do you think? What the heck should we be doing in this last sprint?
Yes. The answer is all of those things. No. The most effective use of your time can be boiled down to 3 things. Number one, it's what we call relational organizing. And it's something that other members have mentioned here. Who are the people in your orbit that you know, whether they're your friends, your family, your colleagues, that you can talk to about voting? How do you get them to make a vote plan? And the reason that we ask people to make a vote plan is because you can just say, if Ashley asked me to vote, I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. But then if Ashley says, well, Kelly, how are you going to go vote? Well, now I've got to think through all the things that can go wrong on election day and make a plan. Oh, well, what if it's raining? What if I've got to take my daughter to school? What if my wife needs the car, right? I've got to work through all of those hurdles in advance so that they're not hurdles on election day. And research has shown that is way more effective to get a person to vote. So they've already thought through all of the problems. They know how to handle it if they come up, instead of being like, I said I was going to vote, but you know what? It's raining. I'm not going today. That is huge. That is critical, especially not just in the 7 to 8 to 10 swing states, however you want to define those, but in the districts that matter, like Representative Underwood's district. Honestly, it doesn't matter. There are local races all over the country. So using your personal network and reaching out to them, number one. Number two, if you have time to volunteer, voter contact is the absolute most effective way to use your time. If you can go door to door for a local candidate, if you can go door to door for Harris Walls, if you can go door to door, please, please, please volunteer and do it. If you can't go door to door, make phone calls. If you can't make phone calls, text, right? There's all kinds of things that you can do with your time. And there are a whole bunch of ways that the Harris campaign, the Underwood campaign, other campaigns have all set up and make it easy to do so virtually, often from the comfort of your own home, but nothing beats face-to-face contact. So please do it. We need more people. This is how we win. This race is going to be so close. It's going to come down to turnout.
Absolutely. Now we have a question about some of the technology that campaigns use. So this question is coming to us from Kenneth Obel. He said, it seems like in every presidential campaign, the technology platforms change. And then across states, there's no consistency. So Kelly, is this something that as a party we're looking to change, to invest more in, so that when people are text banking in different states, they don't have to relearn a system? There are some places where you're text banking or your phone banking and they're not using a dialer. There are other people that are. Like, is the technology piece something that NDTC invests in?
So the short answer is I wish this were the case, but that is just not the way that our ecosystem is set up. Every campaign runs their own tech. I'm not a member of any organized party. I'm a Democrat, right? The party doesn't dictate down to every state party, to every local campaign, what the technology or the tech stack should be. Every campaign is on their own to figure that out. I agree it would be so much easier and consistent and efficient for all of us to use the same technology. But it's unfortunately just not how it works, and not something this cycle that I'm aware of that we can fix. I would love to say we could fix that in future cycles. And there are many of us advocating and pushing for that, but that might be a dream too far, but we'll keep trying.
Lauren, is this something that your campaign has dealt with technology constantly changing and updating from year to year, getting volunteers into it, or maybe I'll come back to Lauren. I also have one for Ashley. We lost her. Okay. So of course, for the, young person, we have the hardest question for you, Ashley, which is, what do you tell other young people who are maybe not enthused with their choice at the top of the ticket, but for whatever reason, things going on in the world, they are upset about both choices? How do you motivate them and get them to see the broader picture?
Right. Well, for me, the conversation a lot has been around harm mitigation, because I think that we're very quick to, be single issue voters in particular ways. And like, I'm not going to knock anyone's feelings about why they would or would not vote for a certain candidate. But when we look at like choices that would impact people in ways and in mass ways that are really, really harmful, I think that we have to kind of weigh the scale differently here when we look at what we're up against with the opposing party in this particular election. Is it going to be more or less harmful to support the candidate that we support? So I think like trying to hear them out and not like, because I think also oftentimes we'll be like, I just disagree and the conversation ends, or you're just like screaming at each other. But hearing what they have to say and then showcasing the ways in which harm is going to be amplified seems to be working a little bit more than I thought it would actually, which is pretty great. And I just think that it's important to really bring up harm mitigation and figure out ways to amplify the fact that like, I understand your point of view, but maybe this might do more harm than good for all these people. And so let's just kind of have that conversation. So that's what I've been doing. I know my friends have all been using different tactics, but I think it's about listening and trying to show someone that you hear them, and then helping them sway that way. That's my game plan.
I love it. That is an amazing game plan. Well, I want to thank everyone who joined this call, all of our panelists. I think we've made an incredible case for the long-term strategy and the infrastructure that we need in the Democratic Party, and that NDTC is our ticket to that future that we can see it. We can see the light at the end of the tunnel. We're popping the link to donate again in the chat. I know that this has been a long election season, that you've gone to a lot of Zooms and you've gone to a lot of fundraisers. Well, and you are feeling tired. You're supposed to feel tired. You're supposed to feel drained. Dig a little deeper. Here's the thing. We are going to spend the next 11, 12 days worrying. It's natural. That is what we are going to be doing. But I like to think of a little rubric. Think about what you get paid in your day job. Think about what your hourly rate, whether you're a doctor or a server or whatever you are. Think about how much you get paid per hour. Do a little math. Then think about how much time you spend worrying about the future of our democracy. Then multiply those numbers together. That is your worrying salary. Give that on this call tonight, because you're a highly paid person. You spending that time worrying isn't going to do anything. But giving that on this call tonight, that is going to do something. That is going to move the needle in both our short-term goals to get Lauren Underwood back to the House and our long-term strategy of investing in democratic infrastructure. We gave you a lot of things to focus on tonight. What do we want you to focus on? Everything. What was the answer to all the questions of what should we be doing? All of it. Everything. It all intersects. We kind of have to think of it as like a democracy octopus. There's a lot of different arms. There's a lot of different things we need to be focused on. We need to focus on the top of the ticket. We need to focus on the House and the Senate. We need to focus on local elections, and we need to focus on our long-term strategy. But as Democrats, we are all one animal. We have all of these tentacles, but together we are all one animal. And we need to bring more people in, because that's how we're going to be able to accomplish this. And this is the time to do it. While you have people's attention in these last 2 weeks, this is the time to do it. I've heard it said many times that this election is not about politics, it's about morality. And this is the time to have those really tough conversations with people and tell them, when people show you who they are, believe them. When North Carolina governors show you who they are, believe them. When Donald Trump shows you who he is, believe him. When Kamala Harris tells you that she wants to make your life better, believe her. When Lauren Underwood says she's going to fight for the people of Illinois, believe her, because she has showed us who she is. So thank you all for joining tonight. We can do this. Let's run through the tape. Let's leave it all on the field. All of the sports metaphors. We are in the fourth quarter. Get those fours up. We used to do this in high school. Fourth quarter, guys. We've got this. Thank you for coming tonight. I'm sure I'll see you on another Zoom before this thing ends. Let's go win this. Good night.